Boa tarde, comunidade brasileira, nos estados do Texas, Colorado, Novo México, Arkansas, Kansas, Oklahoma e Louisiana. E boa tarde, também bom início de noite, na verdade, para a comunidade brasileira e no Brasil, quem estiver assistindo do Brasil e tiver interesse em vir estudar nos Estados Unidos. Inicia-se hoje a nossa segunda-feira de educação, né, Second Education, Brazilian Education Fair. Vai ser uma semana, 10 palestras sobre como vir estudar nos Estados Unidos. Vocês verão várias universidades se apresentando, vai ter o escritório do Education USA falando, vai ter nosso Ministério da Educação falando também na sexta-feira. Acompanhe direitinho aqui durante a semana uma programação dedicada para vocês. Eu peço a vocês que se inscrevam no canal, que divulguem essa nossa iniciativa, porque muita gente pode se interessar e, inclusive, se inscrevendo no canal possibilita vocês interagir aqui no nosso chat. Eu não vou tomar muito mais tempo. Nosso palestrante de hoje vai ser o vice-reitor, o reitor Matsuda. Ele é reitor da parte, ele é decano, é a palavra que a gente usa no Brasil, decano dessa parte de pós-graduação. E para introduzi-la, eu vou chamar a Adria Baker, que ela é vice-reitora para Educação Internacional, e mais do que isso, ela é diretora do Brasil at Rice, que é um escritório que a Rice University tem, apenas dedicado a nós brasileiros, à cooperação educacional com o Brasil. Adria, thank you for coming, and the screen is all yours.
Muito obrigada, Daniel, e bem-vindo a todos. Obrigada por terem vindo. Eu sou Adria Baker e diretora the Brazil at Rice. Thank you so much for being here. It is my honor to have you to partner with the Consulate General in Houston, Brazil, for this second educational fair. We're so grateful that you're here, and I have the extreme honor to not only work with the consulate, but to introduce Dean Seiichi Matsuda. He is a faculty member in chemistry, biosciences, and he has a long history at Rice that has done so much for our campus. And so it's just an honor to have him. He has won teaching awards. He has been an interim provost, which is the highest level academic chief officer on campus, so he knows how things work. And as Dean of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies, he has brought in many students with great fellowships, and he's helped our students even get more fellowships. He's tried to expand, and he has done a lot for expanding our face and our attraction to Latin America. In particular, we're so grateful to have this long-term relationship with Brazil. In research and with students. And so he is, it's an honor to hear him, and I hope that you will help me welcome him, and we know that you'll enjoy his talk. Dean Matsuda, thank you for being with us and being our first speaker of the Brazilian Educational Fair. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming. Obrigada a todos.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction. We're deeply grateful for the partnership of the Consul General's office and for Daniel, both for your partnership and for your friendship over the years. So it's really fantastic to have to be in the same town with the Consul General. It makes things much easier. Adria, thank you very much for the kind introduction. You've done an enormous amount for our Brazilian students and for our international students in general. And thank you to everyone who's showed up for our presentation, whether you're here in real time or whether we're meeting you over YouTube 10 or 20 or 50 years down the road. We're happy that you've clicked on our link. So I'll go ahead and share the screen. So is that coming through?
Yes.
So how to apply to grad school in the US. And so this is a picture of our lovely campus in the springtime. It doesn't look like that quite at this moment since we're in the fall. But going to grad school is a grand adventure wherever you go. So if you stay in Brazil, if you go elsewhere, to be able to take your knowledge to another level and to become truly expert in your discipline is an academic thrill. And the the community that you reach in graduate school, to have a lot of friends in the academic community is a fantastic thrill as well. So whatever you decide to do, you've got a great adventure in front of you. And so some questions that I'd like to address today. When you're thinking about grad school, which degree? Is the master's degree or some sort of doctorate? How do you think about the funding for graduate school? What kind of institutions might you like to go to? How does admissions work? And for details, what kind of grades how should you think about grades? How should you think about standardized exams? How should you think about the essays that you're called upon to write? And how do you think about the choices that you'll be making going forward? So lots of kinds of degrees. On this slide, what we're seeing is a recipient of a master's degree. She's taking the master's degree in chemical engineering. And depending on where you've got the little panel of pictures on this Zoom screen, you can see me here up in the top right. That's a picture of my ear. So if you recognize it, I have the happy privilege of shaking hands with all of the people when they're awarded their degrees at commencement. And again, this is a picture of a master's award. And the degrees that we award for the master's degrees, there's lots of them, and they all have lots of letters because each of them is different. Each of them signifies expertise in a different discipline. But at the end of the day, what all of the master's degree means is that you have become expert in your field. And oops. So in the master's degree, when you take the master's degree, you're really continuing along the path to mastery that you start in the bachelor's degree. You do what the bachelor does, but become expert at whatever is known. And so when we go to cross a bridge, we don't have any fear that the bridge might fall down because the bridges are all designed by people who have master's degree in civil engineering. They know exactly what they're doing. They don't make mistakes, they're expert. And so whatever field you decide to pursue your master's in, your objective is to acquire the same level of expertise that a civil engineer has when they're going to be qualified to build a bridge. The PhD is really a very different kind of degree. And so it's not the case that the master's degree is a step along the way to the PhD. I think it used to be that way, but in the United States, it's much less that way. These are really, in many cases, separate paths. So those who pursue the master's degree are often looking at the master's degree as their terminal degree that will position them to do whatever their hopes and dreams are. And the PhD is becoming the worldwide authority on a topic by creating knowledge and creating insight. So it's a degree about creating knowledge. What kind of institutions should you think about? In the United States, there are two broad classes: the public universities that are generally paid for by the state, so the state contributes a lot of the funding, and there are private institutions that are funded with private money. In general, the private institutions are somewhat smaller. They're often somewhat wealthier, so many of them have some endowment funds that provide the financial support so that they're not dependent on the state. In general, the institutions that you'll be thinking about in the United States, they're all nonprofits, so none of them are positioned in a way that they're going to make money. Their objective is to serve the public good and to provide education. And depending on what kind of topic you want to study, you might think about the large publics and the small privates somewhat differently. The large public schools often have a much broader array of degrees, and so if you're looking for something esoteric, you're much more likely to find that in the large public institutions. The small private institutions often provide a closer educational environment. So we often have smaller groups than do the large institutions. And so you'll generally have a closer working relationship with your advisor in a private school than in a public. But there's certainly overlap between the two. you shouldn't view rankings as the dominant issue in your choice of a university. The rankings are certainly relevant, but at the end of the day, the quality of your program and the working relationship with your advisor are the key to your experience. The typical U.S. master's degree is relatively short. Some of them are short as a year. They can be up to 2 years, and some can be a bit more. So it's a relatively quick degree. The U.S. master's degree can be expensive, and the student usually pays tuition for the U.S. master's degree. But in general, the reason that the master's degrees can be expensive is that they lead directly and relatively quickly to jobs that pay well. And so, although students sometimes go into debt and borrow money to pursue a master's degree in some of these disciplines, in general, you should, if you're pursuing the master's route and you're going to borrow money, make sure that you're doing it in an area that's going to be a solid path to a job that will pay you well enough that you can pay back any loans relatively quickly. Note that in the United States, the master's usually is not required for a PhD program. And so again, please view the master's more as an end unto itself rather than as a stepping stone. And in master's admission, the primary admissions criterion is really, does this student project to be strong? Is this a student who's going to be able to master the material that is required? The PhD in the United States is generally heavily supported by the government and the university to achieve research excellence. Most of them are something like a 5 to 6 year combination Masters of Arts or Masters of Science plus the PhD. So it's generally the master's PhD combo that one can take directly. And the master's is rarely required. I would guess that of the entering students at Rice, maybe a quarter to a third of them have already completed a master's degree, but it's becoming rarer. Note that for the PhD program, doctoral students usually are paid, whether it's as a research assistant or as a teaching assistant or gaining a fellowship. And PhD students generally do not pay tuition. And so the finances for the doctoral path are usually substantially easier than for the master's path. And the route to the PhD, it's largely about research. Students usually take some classes in the first year, sometimes in the second year, and sometimes later. But at the end of the day, the primary objective is to do research and to discover something that's new and thrilling. The PhD, once you finished, you usually start your job with some substantial degree of independence. And another nice thing about the PhD, they call you doctor. So to pick up another title is nice. And at most institutions, the primary criterion for admissions isn't simply, is this student strong, but is the student actually the best candidate for this area? And admittedly, the area is sometimes relatively narrow, but in most cases, programs at the doctoral level are looking for something specific about a student that they'll be well positioned to succeed in that research topic. Doctoral admissions is highly competitive, but flexible. And so in a typical doctoral program, the admission rate might be something in the range of 5 to 15%. And so it's a high bar, but the nature of that bar is generally quite flexible. So very few institutions would simply look at who had the best grades or who had the best GRE scores and make the cut that way. So the decisions are made in a very holistic way to try to find the individuals who really have promise in that area. And note that admissions for the doctoral programs really depends on need in individual professors' groups, and so they have influence. So if I'm looking for a student in some specific area, then I really would have the best insight into, who's got the background and the skill set to do the part of the science that I'm pursuing. And so individual faculty have a lot more influence on admission in the doctoral programs than they do for the masters. In a PhD program, in general, all students get paid in doctoral programs, but outside funding can help you get admitted. And so if you win funding from a company or from the Brazilian government or from Fulbright, that having funding ahead of time can be substantial leverage for an institution to look at you much more seriously as a candidate. Note that adjustments are generally possible. In my home department, I'm a chemist, and in any given year, maybe 2/3 of the doctoral students in the chemistry department actually have an undergraduate degree in chemistry. Lots have degrees in something else, so biochemistry or chemical engineering or physics or even computer science. So disciplines that are neighboring to chemistry have a very good shot to be admitted into the chemistry department. And the reason for that is really that we get a ton of applications in the chemistry department for chemists, and so sometimes it's actually really desirable in interdisciplinary areas to be able to get people who are sort of on the periphery. So if you're doing something that's chemical physics, to have a physicist in the group is very valuable. And so often the people who actually have a different degree than is being pursued in the doctorate, they often actually have a bit of an advantage. But practice varies enormously. So gain as much local information as you can. One of the real keys when you're thinking about admissions to a graduate program is that you're not working with an admissions machine, but you're working with individual people. So always think about, who is it who's going to read my application, and how will they view what I have written, and how will they view my record. For some faculty members, grades are the most important thing. For other faculty members, grades actually aren't very important. What they care about more is what's the quality of this person's experience. Some faculty members deeply value writing. So if there's going to be a lot of writing in the role, they might be more concerned about how well someone expresses themselves than they are about how someone would do an experiment. And so what that really means is there's going to be some significant amount of variation in how admission is done between various departments, and so it's simply good to apply to lots of different departments and see with which one you really click. And so when you're writing the application, just think about, how would a person view me, and how would a person view what I'm doing and what I have done. And so 3 things to think about as you're writing an application. You need to show, I am genuinely interested. So people are more successful when they're interested. And so if you can demonstrate that I'm really interested, then that helps your case. Faculty members want to bring people into their program who are valuable. And so how do you express, I am valuable? And we like to work with people who are professional and who are reasonable. So as you're writing your application, just keep in mind, I want to show people that I'm a professional person and that I'm reasonable. And as you're thinking about how do you show interest, so it can be really good to contact relevant people before applying. So if you're applying to a given university and there's one faculty member who you're really interested in, feel free to send that faculty member a note and say, dear Professor so-and-so, I'm really interested in your research. I thought this particular aspect was really exciting and has a lot of promise. And I'm thinking about applying to your program. Can I can I follow up with you? Can I join one of your group meetings? And how specific should you be? And I think it's good to write to a few people, but to know something significant about their research before you write. And so if you write and say, dear professor, I think your work is interesting. Can you tell me more about it? Then you're putting a lot of responsibility on the individual, and they might not find the time to write back to you. If you say, I've read a lot of your papers, I was specifically interested in this paper, and I like these findings, and I'd like to explore this smaller topic. That degree of commitment will really show it's more likely to elicit a positive response. And so it's good to be focused, but it's bad to be over-focused. And so if you write to, let's say so I'm a chemist, I work on terpenoid biosynthesis. And so if you were to apply to Rice and say, I really want to join Matsuda's lab and work on terpenoid biosynthesis, and that's the only way I will ever be happy, that would be a bad thing to write, because I'm a dean now, I'm not taking grad students. And so if you over-focused on me as someone who's not taking grad students anymore, the admissions committee would say, wow, this person looks really promising, but wants to go to a lab that's not taking people. So yeah, so we should decline that person. So it's dangerous to over-focus. Much better is if you write and you say, I'm very interested in this department. I'm interested in Professor Smith is doing these interesting things. Professor Brown is doing these other interesting things. Professor Jones has really cool stuff going on. Wow, there are lots of people I can imagine working with, many options for me at that university. That's a kind of approach that's more likely to get a favorable response. And when you write your essays, prove your interest through some sort of gained expertise. So to say, I'm interested it's relatively easy to write that. To say, I'm interested because I read these papers, because I went to some lecture, because I did research in this area, those are much more compelling kinds of statements. How do you show that you're professional and reasonable? Simply be professional and reasonable. As you're interacting with people, as you're writing things, just write things that are thoughtful and professional and reasonable. For the personal statement, I think that the personal statement is one that people often do a lot of soul searching about. It's harder to write the personal statement than it is to write what you already have done. And so some of the things that people think about is, how long should it be? What should be there? What's the format? What about things that aren't directly related to your discipline? And in general, how long? A page or two. And so less than a page is insufficient. More than 2 pages is too much. What to include there? Your research or independent project experience, what you will do with your degree. Those are the key points that you want to make. The kind of format, something like 4 to 5 paragraphs is right. So 3 paragraphs is too short, 6 is too long. And so if you limit yourself to this kind of structure, then you have less soul searching to do, and it's a lot easier to write when you've got concrete ideas about what to do. Achievements not directly related to your discipline. So if you want a gold medal in the Olympics, that's great. Everybody likes to know an Olympian, but at the end of the day, will an Olympic gold medal really change your research? I think it probably took a lot of discipline to get that, but your research probably won't be about what you earned your gold medal on. And so for your essay, and a lot of this is very easy to structure, and it helps you write. The first sentence is the reader's first impression of you, and so make it engaging, right? This one should be interesting. The last sentence of the first paragraph should answer the question, why do I want to get a PhD in this area? So if you write those 2, and then you just put some more sentences in between it, then your first paragraph is written. It's all much easier if you have a formula. And so just as some examples of things I've seen in applications. So yeah, this was from a real application. Why do I want to be a chemist? Some of my most enduring childhood memories center around holidays at the beach, where there was the inexorable notion that time stood still while we were near to nature's heart, right? So it's very pretty words. Does it have anything to do with getting a PhD in chemistry? Not really, right? So this person's showing ability to write, but what are they writing about? It's not about the discipline. And so you don't need to worry about, you know, writing pretty words. We really are looking for the content. And so something like this, I want to create things. I want to make them on the scale of biological machinery. With this goal in mind, I'm interested in the type of synthetic biology which involves using parts from natural biology to produce new results. Something like this, it really shows this is what my interest is. It doesn't have lots of pretty words. It's clear and it's straightforward, and it simply says, these are what my hopes and dreams are. You know, if you like them, great, let's talk more. If you don't like them, then maybe I should go somewhere else. Things that you might talk about for intervening paragraphs. If you went on an internship, if you wrote a senior thesis project, if there are interesting things about your family and their connection to how you became interested in your topic. If you had interest in this topic even at a young age, it's a good thing to write about. If you had a job, to have had a job is actually a really good thing for grad schools, to know what it is to work hard. If you won a photography contest, these are all things that are worth mentioning, but the early parts really should be about things that are professional in nature. And think about a closing paragraph. And so in general, your conclusion needs to support summarize your supporting points and tie them into the first paragraph. And so it doesn't need to be long and complicated, but a few sentences about how your hopes and dreams and what you will do in grad school, how does this all tie together so that when someone has read your essay, they can conclude, you know, this is a thoughtful person who wants to do good things. This would be a valuable person to have in our intellectual community. So it's important to tie it all up at the end. So just in general, for the approach to go to grad school, think seriously about what would make you happy over the next decade. So you don't know what you're going to be doing 20 years from now. So just think about grad school is 5 years and 5 years after that. What would make you happy? Think about what kind of institution you would fit in. It's really good to be in the top half. So it's not so good to be in the bottom half. And so if you've applied to a school that you think, well, I'm lucky to get in there and maybe I'll survive, that's probably not the right way to view it. Think about schools that if you go, you'll find an area to work on that you'll be really thrilled about and you'll be very enthusiastic. And at the end of the day, people will say, wow, this is one of our best people. And if you're an undergraduate student, it's really important to do research. It's actually less important to succeed at research than to do it. So there's a lot of luck in research. And so if you've taken up research as an undergrad and you worked hard and it was really interesting, but what you tried to do just didn't quite work, that's absolutely fine. So if everything you did as an undergrad worked, then you probably ought to get a PhD on the spot. And you know that wasn't the experience of most of us. And so the really important thing about doing research is that you've tried it, you've tasted the success and the disappointment, and at the end of the day, you said, "Wow, that was really fun. I want to do more of that." And in general, to take the GRE and the TOEFL by in the next couple of months is important. But note that this year, many institutions, maybe most institutions, are waiving the GRE requirement and are accepting other language tests. So at Rice, for example, we are not requiring the GRE this year. We'll essentially accept any kind of credible language test. So the IBT Home is fine. The Duolingo is fine as well. And many institutions are doing the same thing. Develop relationships when you can. So it's good to email professors and be in contact with them. You should be thinking about applying in the next couple of months. Get fee waivers if you can. So at Rice, for example, if people ask for a fee waiver, I simply grant it. I think $85 is a lot of money for a student. And in general, you'll get your offers by mid-February. Visit campuses, maybe virtually. This year is a little bit complicated. And so it'll probably be some sort of online thing. And in general, decisions are due by April 15th. And if I can talk just a bit about Rice. So every institution has core values. Ours conveniently spell out Rice. So 4 things that are important to us. Responsibility is really important. So we want to bring in people and we want to develop people who will take a very high degree of responsibility to behave well, to do things well, and to make our world better. Integrity is critically important. And so if you say you're going to do something, do it. If you do something, do a good thing. Community is core to our approach. We're a relatively small institution. All of us know everybody, and so it's essential that we take care of one another, that we help other people be in a position to succeed, and that we be happy. So to have people who we like to work with, people who we like to hang out with, and to celebrate a meal together, those are really important. And at the end of the day, it's all about excellence. So how do I get to be a more excellent version of myself? That's really fundamental to the educational process. Some facts about Rice. We support high achievement in a great environment. It's very important to us to do things in a way that is smart and sane and productive, and that makes people in a better position to succeed. We're ranked number 14 nationally. We're 89 in QS World, 2 Nobel Prizes at Rice, roughly a dozen members of all of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, National Academy of Science, National Academy of Engineering. And numbers vary from year to year, but we're always at the very top or towards the very top in quality of Rice, quality of life, race-class interactions, and student happiness. So fundamentally, we really believe that for people to be productive, their situation must be stable. They need to be happy, and they need to not have unnecessary stressors or things that derail them. So you can simply focus on doing great work and not worry about the other kinds of things. Strong doctoral and master's programs in a variety of disciplines. We don't have medicine or law or education. The financial model is important to who we are. Rice has roughly $1 million in endowment for every student, and we spend something in the range of $100,000 per student per year. So we invest very heavily in just a few people, and so it's really a terrific place to have to take your education, because our students are generally limited by their ambition and their willingness to work. They're typically not limited by access to faculty time or access to instrumentation or other kinds of things that can be solved through investment. Our ratio of students to faculty is 3-to-1 in the doctoral STEM disciplines, something like 1-to-1 to 2-to-1 in other kinds of disciplines. And so in general, you have plenty of access to your faculty member. A few things about Houston. We're the 4th largest city in the United States, 2nd most Fortune 500 companies after New York. The world's largest medical center is here, and there's a ton of business in oil and gas. It's a fantastically welcoming city. So this is, Houston was new to me. It was not my home, but I think that in many cases, because of the natural resources in this area, the Texas area has always had more natural resources than it has had people. And so it has really valued the people who have come because, and they were the limiting aspect. And so I found the people to be fantastically warm. We're the largest port in the United States by foreign tonnage, the most diverse city in the United States. 42% of the country of the city speaks a language other than English at home, and so we're a very international city. And the best outcome of a very international city is that the restaurants are great. So lots of people came here with nothing other than knowledge of how to make things that taste great, and they started a restaurant, and then they teach us about the food from other countries. The art scene is fantastic as well. We have an undergrad symposium, which will be on the 31st. So I hope that some of you have applied for it. There might still be a small window to get in. And here's a website that you can find requests for information. And I should find a way to send this to you. This is a really cool movie. And so Priscilla da Silva is a chemical engineer who went to Universidad Brasilia and came for a PhD at Rice. And so this is a video of Priscilla working on the difference between Brazilian football and American football. So I'll try to find a way to send this link around. It's a cool short movie. And thank you for your time, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Dean Matsuda. And I guess I can put this link here on the description of the video. After we finish, I can put either Priscilla and the links for, I put already on the comments the link, the general link for Rice University and for Brazil at Rice, which are not 2 other doors, let's say, for people to get in contact and solve their doubts.
Great.
As for questions here, we have two people asking pretty much the same thing for different reasons. I think one is afraid to be too young and the other is afraid to be too old. So they're asking how the age factor impacts on these admissions. Do you take postdoctoral candidates who are in their 50s? That's one of the questions.
Sure. So age isn't something that there are advantages and disadvantages for whatever age you are. And there are a lot of things that I can do much better now than I could have done when I was 22. There are lots of things I could have done better when I was 22 than when I was 28. So there's no such thing as too young. There's no such thing as too old. So it's not something that I even think about, actually. My father went to grad school when I think he was 72. So after he retired from teaching high school, he went and got a doctorate. So
there's no a candidate's not stronger or weaker because he's younger or older, or?
I don't think so. I think they're simply different.
Okay. So there's another question here. Let me find precisely who asked. Manuela Santos asked, she's going to apply for psychology and the GRE is optional because of COVID this semester. But she asks, do you think even if it's optional, a good GRE grade would impact, is a high factor to decide if the candidate's good or not for the program?
And so there's no right or wrong answer. In general, the industrial and organizational psychologists, a lot of them study the GRE as a research topic. And so I think the IO psychologists often would like to see a strong GRE score. But note that the GRE is very different for Americans and for people who are from a different country and a different background. it would be really hard for me to take a test in another language. So it's pretty obvious that you can't view an American GRE score in the same way that one would view a GRE score from someone who's taking a test in another language.
So I'll give another 30 seconds if someone wants to ask something else. And in the meantime, just 1 second of Portuguese. Continue, depois dessa palestra, a gente tem a próxima palestra, será, deixe-me fazer a minha colinha aqui, a próxima palestra com a Universidade de São Tomás, oportunidades, por exemplo, estudantes brasileiros, vai ser com a Nick Green, que é diretora assistente de admissões para graduação. E eu queria fazer mais um aviso também, amanhã, meio-dia, tem o lançamento de um vídeo aqui do Consulado de Português como Língua de Herança. Temos mais alguma pergunta ou posso dispensar? I think people are just thanking you. Rice is coming back on Thursday for the educational fair. Thursday, 6 p.m. We're going to have more Rice here on the fair. Thank you very much, Dean Matsuda. Thank you, Adrian, for being with us. And let's follow the Educational Week. 9 to go.
Thank you very much.
Eu coloquei para vocês, então, os sites da Rice e do Brasil at Rice, e eu vou depois colocar aqui os links que o Dean Matsuda passou durante a palestra. Até mais, até já, 6 horas, a gente está de volta com a próxima palestra. Grande abraço.
Muito obrigada.
Thank you very much.
Até amanhã.